Hello and welcome to episode 2 of the Guarneri podcast. First off, I would like to apologize. Yesterday at the end of the podcast, I unintentionally lied to you. Today, number 2 in the podcast series is not going to be about the different types of fields I am studying and testing and learning about to help you with anxiety and depression. I think it'd be better in this episode too to kind of give you a background of who I am and what I'm doing and why I'm doing it and why I want to help you. So we'll do that today and we'll move on to other things tomorrow. So first off, you know me, my name is Mike. I'm 50 years old and I live in New York. I have a wife, 3 kids, and 2 golden doodles. That's the most important thing to remember, the golden doodles. I'm a CPA and was an accountant for about 30 years until I realized I had to find my path to happiness, to mental health and stability, some sort of spiritual attainment, to be happy, basically. So when I was a kid, I had anxiety. I probably didn't necessarily realize it. It would manifest itself physically with different ailments, which wasn't pleasant. As I got into high school, it got pretty bad. And I guess just for a lack of realizing or whatever, or me expressing how bad it was, my parents never took me to a doctor to address it. Um, by the time got out of college, I was a ball of anxiety. And I worked my ass off for the X many years since then, dealing with this anxiety. And little did I know, depression as well. The anxiety was so strong that it covered up the depression. It wasn't until in the recent past that I finally came to the realization of what was going on. And that happened one May night in 2022. Um, I went to bed, and for some inexplicable reason, I wasn't dreaming about anything or thinking about anything particular. I jumped up out of my bed. My heart was racing. I couldn't breathe. I was in a cold sweat. I thought I was having a heart attack at first, but it turned out to be a panic attack. And I couldn't sit still. I couldn't, every time I sat still, I would have problems breathing again. I literally went out the door into the streets and wandered the streets for an hour, just trying to burn off energy. Horrible feeling. I hope you never experienced anything like that. When I got home, I tried 2 times to go back to sleep. Both times it was and popped right out of bed again. I didn't know what the hell was going on. I stayed up all night, pacing around the house. The next day, it was the whole day, it was the same thing. I just couldn't calm myself down. By the time my wife got home from work, she said, "No, enough of this," and called my doctor and told him what was going on. And he prescribed a medication to me to just break the cycle, mm, give me a rest and let me sleep a little bit. Which helped and did what it was supposed to do. But after that, right away, I got recommendations for a psychologist, and started receiving therapy, talk therapy, which was helpful. And concurrently, I got a psychiatrist. So that way, the psychiatrist and the therapy could work together. And the psychiatrist prescribed various medications. The problem was, finding the right medication or the right combination of medicines or the right dosages. It's kind of a guessing game until you find what works. And for me, it took almost a year to find what works, to find the right combination and dosages. So May of 2022, 23, I'm sorry, May of 2023, a year later, we found the right combination and this fog just lifted off of me. And it wasn't a cure all, the medication and the therapy. I still got anxious and was depressed and wasn't fun. it was not as bad as it was. And I said to myself, what can I do to get myself the rest of the way? I didn't know, um, but I had some time because I neglected to mention that my last job that I was in for 17 years, I worked for a nut job, who did nothing but cause unnecessary anxiety and stress. And in August of 2022, a few months after I had that crazy panic attack, I quit my job with no other job, no plans for what I wanted to do. All I knew was I had to get out of there. So now, that was May of 2022. Now we're into May of 2023, and I'm feeling a little bit better. Still not working, still didn't know what I wanted to do, but I spent all this time reading and researching, trying to understand what was going on with me, trying to find out why I felt the way I did, why I needed to take medication. Because those have side effects that aren't very desirable. And the more I researched it, I realized there must be something to supplement the medications and the talk therapy that could get me further along on the way. So I did an exercise. I sat down and I thought for a number of hours, was there ever any time in my life when I didn't feel anxiety or depression and was just happy, just good? And the only time I can remember, the only time that came to memory, at least in my adult life, was when we visited Ireland, one of my ancestral homelands. There, I felt no anxiety. I felt no depression. I didn't have to go do crazy things there or see amazing things, which I did anyway. Just being there, just the ground, the environment, the landscape, just calmed me down. It had some sort of medicinal property to it, and I couldn't put my finger on it. So I decided I was just gonna, sleep on it, rest on it, and see what came to be. And what ended up happening was a couple nights later, I don't know if I was fully asleep, dreaming, in between state, but I had this revelation that I needed to look at old ways. Initially, at the old Celtic ways, the old Druid ways, and pull out what might have worked for them. And I had to believe that there was something to the Druid Celtic practices because so many were adopted by the Catholic Church when they came into Ireland, pretty much took over. They wouldn't have taken things that were crap. They were going to take something because they wanted the people to feel comfortable converting to Christianity. So they definitely did, for that purpose, kind of, for lack of a better word, steal or copy um, many Celtic practices. Uh, but the ones they took or used were going to be the ones that they thought were the best. So I started researching Celtic spirituality and the Druids. Now, mind you, not much is known about either, especially the Druids. Most are second and third hand accounts that were biased. Um, and the Celts, to a similar degree, there's not a lot of documentation. They were a very oral culture. Information was passed orally, not necessarily written down. So as a result of that, I kept researching. I found practices that had carried through into Christianity, and I tested them from a Celtic perspective and figured out which ones did I think were helping anxiety and depression for me. No, just for me, but I would hope it would help for other people. I tend to put a little more value in my work with this stuff, not because I'm anything special, but I do have a very analytical and logical mind. I was accountant. I mean, that was my job. And if it passed my muster, I figured it could pass most people's muster, because there's a lot of crap out there, a lot of bullshit, a lot of lies, a lot of people out just trying to trick you and make money. So I don't want to do any of that. I wanted real stuff, real answers that could work. And as a result, back in May of this year, 2023, I put out a free ebook, 10 Celtic practices to level up your mind and relieve anxiety and depression. And those 10 practices are ones that work for me through my testing. Your mileage may vary, but it worked for me. Now I'm expanding that a little further into other old and ancient things, cultures, practices, traditions. Can involve anything esoteric or occult, which is widely misunderstood. Tomorrow we'll go into the details of what I'm looking at, why I'm looking at it, what I hope to gain from it, and what I hope to give to you to hopefully provide some help. Um, wide field, many years of research will need to be done, but I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to that mental peace. I'm looking forward to that spiritual attainment. Whatever you want to call it, it doesn't matter what religion you believe in or if you don't believe in any, there is a something someplace. And I think we all want to achieve that level where it's just peace and happiness. I hope I'm right in that. I hope that place does exist. I have to think it does. Otherwise, it's a pretty dreary thought, especially for somebody who suffers from depression. But anyway, I'm going to conclude today's podcast. And tomorrow we will get more into those ancient and occult and esoteric things that I plan to look at in the coming future. And as well, I'm still going to be looking into the Celtic practices and into druidry and to see what keeps coming up. You know, it's not an end of anything really, it's just an expansion of everything. So I will see you all tomorrow. Thank you for listening to episode number 2 of the Mike Guarneri podcast.